It is time for another professional match of StarCraft 2. In the top right corner of Daybreak Alley, we got none other than the red Terran player known as Ryung. And his opponent, spawning in the bottom left corner, and actually the reason why I got this replay, is playing under the nickname Amnesia, but it's none other than Scarlett. Now, apparently Scarlett was streaming yesterday over at twitch.tv, and for one of her donation goals, she decided to give out a replay pack. So I contacted her in the morning, asking if I could go ahead and cast any of these games, and if there was a recommendation of one of the matches that she would prefer me to cast. And she said that the game that she played against Ryung on Daybreak Alley was probably the best one all night, as apparently this is a long, drawn-out macro game with a couple of twists. So I haven't seen this game myself yet either, but it is going to be awesome. At the very least, you know, judging by her words, I think we can probably make the assumption that it's going to be really, really good. Now, for any one of you unfamiliar with Scarlett for some odd reason, I mean, she's very well known. She is one of the very best non-Korean Zerg players, has actually competed in a lot of Korean tournaments as well. Apparently, as of like a couple of months ago, she's also a world record holder in the Guinness Book of Records for highest earned female player in esports, which is absolutely awesome. Pretty great actually that they started keeping track of such things. But that is just, you know, a very quick introduction to her. She's a very, very great Zerg player, very powerful, and in general is very well loved by the community and anyone that really follows StarCraft 2. Anyhow, obviously I recently did already make a video about Ryung as well when he went up against Creator. If you haven't watched that game, I'll go ahead and post a link to that one down below in the comment section of this video, because he's also a very well-known player and I introduce him in that video as well. Anyhow, not entirely sure what we should be expecting here. One thing to note is that this game was indeed played last night, so that does mean that this is all going to be running in patch 3.8, which obviously changed up the entire meta game of StarCraft 2 significantly, and it really, you know, will change out how we will play StarCraft 2 for the foreseeable future. We do see a pretty interesting opener here actually by Ryung. For some reason, most of the Terran vs Zerg matches that I have seen in the recent patch so far are all based around Cyclone Hellion openers. But I think that the Terran players have started to realize that the Zergs out there in the world are just a little bit too good to die to that little bit of aggression in the earlier stages of the game. So I think we've already seen that transition away from that belt a little bit more, because Scarlett is just not gonna die to Hellions and Cyclones. It's just not gonna happen. It worked for the first couple of days of the patch being out, and it may still work for a couple more months to go. At the very least, it's sort of like a cheese in a best of 7 series or whatever. But for the most part, Zerg players will be extremely good at holding that type of aggression. We actually see Scarlett pulling drones out of the gas guys right here, only a single worker in that gas right now, allowing her to get that third out just a little bit faster, after obviously starting up the metabolic boost upgrade. At the same time, Overlord flying in as well. We'll notice that indeed a lot of Marines are on the production tab, and that will be something that is extremely helpful to know, as there are only so many builds that Ryung can go for right now. It's not going to be super fast Hellions. Will that Overlord actually end up falling? It may very well die. That's actually rather painful. That is actually rather painful as a Zerg player, because immediately, as you can see, that supply block is hit, and while Overlords are currently in production, 40 supply out of 36 right now definitely cuts into that production, but also, you know, any kind of Overlord that would be able to spot any kind of drops coming in from this area are immediately denied. So that's actually rather painful, but she does know exactly what the Terran player is going for right now, so that doesn't mean that it's impossible to see Hellions enter the field, but it's rather uncommon, and more than likely, we can make the assumption right now that Ryung is gonna indeed go for, you know, more and more Marines. At the same time, we do see Ryung here going for... Alright, he's just shooting her with that plate right there. We do see that starport go down here, as well as a factory that is making a reactor. So that starport is indeed going to switch over, and with that stim pack on the way, I'm assuming we're going to see Medivacs. There we do see indeed double Medivacs go down. Factory has once again landed. I don't know if we're going to see any production out of that for the time being, but it looks like this is starting to be a relatively standard Terran versus Zerg kind of build, where the Terran player is just simply going to go for the good old Marine drop. At the same time, the Zerg has been droning up. Scarlett is known for playing macro-based styles. Obviously, she's totally capable of playing, you know, cheesy as well, if it turns out to be necessary, but this was played on the Korean ladder. This is a practice game, so in most instances, players are not really going to need to practice cheese all too much, as that's just something they want to do every now and then. But really, macro is what needs the most practice, and that's exactly what we are seeing in this one as well. So +1/+1 going down right now. Actually, going for that armor upgrade in the evolution chamber. A lot of the Zerg players have been going missile as well as melee upgrades, it seems like, just because of how powerful Hydras are right now in the metagame. In particular, if you manage to get really solid creep spread out. But so far, you know, judging by the upgrades, we will more than likely just see a relatively standard Mutiling Bane type of army composition right here out of Scarlett. Obviously, she could still transition, but it looks like the Marines has arrived. Now, they have arrived, rather. Now, he's gonna try and do as much damage as possible. We can see, however, that there's already a whole lot of queens at the front. There's a lot of Zerglings as well. More and more are in production. The lair is going down as well as the Banelings nest, but I don't think the Banelings are really going to be necessary just to deal with these 16 Marines right here. And I think what Ryung wants to do is just try and do as much creep spread damage as possible. Ooh, that was really nice, actually. Managed to get that tumor once again and completely gets rid of all of the creep here in the middle. Now, this is something we really haven't seen all too much. A third Medivac joining the fight as well with a Widow Mine in it as well. That's actually very interesting. Normally the builds end after the initial 60 Marine harassment, but it looks like Ryung is not quite done with this just yet. I don't know how aggressive he wants to be. Banelings are currently morphing in. They will be finishing up very soon, and with one little misstep, that does mean that these Banelings will absolutely 100% guarantee the kill on those. At the same time, though, actually a command center was cancelled with a couple of Zerglings that did end up running by. Nice little counterplay right there. Even, you know, failing me as the observer of this game. I was wondering why Scarlett was making that many Zerglings, but apparently they can easily be used for the run by as well. Now, there is a wall at the front. There's plenty of Marines to deal with this as well. And with that's actually an interesting position right here on the engineering bay. It looks like so far we are good. And that command center has since restarted in the main base of the Terran, as well as, you know, a whole bunch more barracks. So this good old Marine Medivac with maybe a couple of Widow Mines here from Ryung. At the same time, Scarlett has decided to go for a very safe early game here. Not rushing out the Spire or whatever. Not really going for any kind of... Ooh, nice little bit of aggression there once again. Not really rushing out the Spire or whatever. Going for the Baneling speed upgrade right now first. And obviously this upgrade now also grants the plus 10 HP. All of the Banelings, which is extremely helpful. And in many instances can completely change the outcome of a battle. Widow Mine does get detonated here, and I think these Medivacs are just gonna run home. I mean, we know right now that there are, you know, Zerglings underneath them, and it's gonna be very difficult to do anything with them right at this point in time. Even favoring, that's actually really cool, even favoring the +2/+2 before any kind of tech building goes down. It could even be an infestation pit at this point in time. Like, infestations, or infestors right now are extremely powerful, as they can also be casting all of their spells while burrowed. And while it doesn't make a huge difference, it most definitely does make them a lot more useful in the long run, in particular in early game scenarios when there aren't, you know, plenty of scans available. Meanwhile, more and more drops coming in. The second ones are gonna be heading right here to the Watchtower, while the other drop is at the potential fort base right now for Scarlett. Spire does indeed end up going down here eventually, but it looks like Ryung is planning to go for some incredibly aggressive harassment here. Stim does get used in the middle of the map. At the same time, though, there is a drop looming at the third and fourth base location of Scarlett right now. Baneling's gonna try and connect here to the best of their abilities. Queens do have a lot of anti-air range, but for the moment, it looks like that is okay. Drop coming in at the fort as well does immediately get picked up here by the Zerglings that are just simply hanging out here. A nice little bit of control here. One of the things, right, that is very, very common of professional gamers is they have very solid control of the armies, and instead of having everything clumped up in one area, they are controlling each and every part of their army individually, which is extremely important here. Nice little bit of creep spread, actually, very, very important. We see the drop go down at the fort base once again, and there's also potential damage coming in here into the main base of Scarlett. At the same time, though, these Marines are not done just... Oh, man, they're actually not done just yet at all, because they're gonna start gunning down that fort base. It's just finishing up. We're gonna need Banelings here, though, if we're gonna be able to deal with this. A couple of Banelings are indeed gonna be rolling in here very, very shortly. Will they be able to get in here in time, though? At the same time, a drop does go down in the main base as well. It looks like the fort base has been saved, at the very least for the time being. The Banelings connect in the main as well, and these Marines are gunning for their life. But it looks like, so far, very minimal amount of damage has been taken. The thing is, what you're really looking forward to here, as a Terran player, when you're executing these drops, is to deny the Zerg player their economy. And while it definitely... Oh, that fort base does indeed end up falling with another dropship that headed from the main base over towards the fort. While the harassment definitely has been very efficient here. I like this a lot. The anti-Medivac harass. So tricky. But while the While the economy definitely has been halted a little bit, no worker damage really has been going down so far. I mean, we've seen a couple of run-bys here at the third base as well for Scarlett, and she's been doing a very good job when it comes to dealing pressure right there. But there is aggression happening all over this map. Now, by the way, if in case I miss any of the, fights that are going on, obviously I do want you to know that I am, the sole observer in this game. I'm not, having a dedicated observer for any of these matches, obviously, that I'm casting on YouTube. Trying my very best, though, to keep a track of everything that is going on. But oftentimes, in particular these kind of games, it can get crazy really, really fast. Main base, once again, under harassment right now by Ryung. It looks like there may actually be a couple of Widow Mines in this army as well. There we go. They're going to be able to do some damage. At the same time, there's also a fight right here in the middle side of the map towards that central base of the Zerg. The main base still under pressure. Widow Mines not burrowed just yet, but more and more creep spread, and as well as more and more queens joining this army, and they're really allowed to do a lot of damage. Nice connection there as well, getting rid of these Widow Mines. At the same time, though, I thought for a second these were actual Marines, but no, those are just going to be good old changelings trying to deal whatever damage they can. The mutas are in very big numbers now. The mutas are in extremely big numbers, and what this allows Zerg to do is really deal with these drops much more efficiently than they normally can. Most scenarios, though, really the creep spread is the damage that the Terran player can get away with right now at this level of play. At the same time, massive push making its way towards the middle side of the map. Two Medivacs trying desperately to get back towards the main base just because the mutas are on the prowl. At the same time, drop going down right here in the main base. The double Medivacs are being caught in the dead space right there, and a lot of the Marines will end up falling. A push right here at the front as well, trying to clear up whatever creep spread we can, and a drop going down in the main base, doing as much damage as possible. Nice pickup before any kind of insane damage can get dealt, and nice connection there will allow the Terran to, at the very least, pick up a nice lead as far as the supply goes. Really beautiful play so far by Ryung, really not allowing Scarlett to, take a breathe right here, and not really going up to a hive just yet. We see that infestation pit go down right now at the front of the natural. Very, very safe location on Daybreak Alley, just because obviously there are only so many places that you can actually prevent from being dropped, and this is probably the most unlikely place for a dropship to come in. Consistent harassment here, though, by Ryung. Very, very good. It's very, very fun to watch as well. It's very, very difficult to execute. In case you are a Terran player, this is what you want to do if you're trying to break a Zerg. This is where you're trying to really put on the pressure. Mutas, at the same time, though, has made their way to the other side of the map. Marines are going to be forced into the main base of the Terran once again to try and deal with these mutas. But at the same time, a push right here in the central part of the map. The Widow Mines will be burrowed, but there's also a threat right here in the main base with 3 entirely full Medivacs potentially dropping the main base. Nice little bit of patrol micro right there, allowing these Zerglings to immediately pick up a potential dropship. 2 overlords, desperately trying to make themselves look like they're gonna be dropping Zerglings into the main of the Terran, but so far it's looking pretty good for Scarlett, to be honest. I mean, she's transitioning towards that hive. She's got a lot of Zerglings in the production tab, and more importantly, there are 5 bases taken, opposed to the 3rd, just about to be 4th base here of the Terran. Drop going down once again in the main base. They're gonna do as much damage here as possible. Nice little bit of, actually nice positioning here on the Terran player, really allowing that stim to do a ton of damage, and while the queens will eventually deal with all of these Medivacs, these Marines have definitely paid for themselves here, with even one of the Medivacs getting out of there as well. Massive push once again, making up to move towards the middle side here of the map. The rocks in the middle. Ooh, man, gotta be very careful here. Gotta be very careful with these mutas. If they all end up falling, that's gonna be extremely rough. Middle rocks, though, still not being taken care of, so that does mean that it's gonna be a rather long position. Planetary Fortress going down in the middle of the map right now for the Terran player as well, but a lot of Widow Mines have been burrowed, and really, it all comes down to the control here of both players. How well are they gonna split? How well are these Widow Mines going to connect? And so far, it's looking extremely good for probably the Zerg player here. I mean, that creep has been spread consistently and constantly here throughout the entirety of that match, and that really allowed the Zerg here to connect with those Widow Mines without taking massive amounts of damage. At the same time, Hive is done, +3/+3 is on the way. Adrenal Glands is right now being researched in the spawning pool as well, and while we don't see an Ultra Cavern on anything like that just yet, this most definitely is looking relatively solid. Once those upgrades finish up in the main, this army all of a sudden becomes extremely, extremely terrifying. At the same time, 5th base has been started up right here by Ryung as well. Couple of mutas trying to get rid of as many of these Widow Mines as possible. Nice connection does manage to make sure that one of those mutas will indeed end up falling at the very least. Watchtower actually taken right now by one brave Marine, but he immediately ends up falling. And the Changeling gets used here to take control of that Watchtower. The mutas, at the same time though, or at this point in the game, are gonna be headed towards the main base just to try and do as much damage here as possible. It looks like Terran, at the same time, has switched towards that Liberator production. Really is gonna help out, in particular against the Ultralisks that are gonna be joining this fight very, very shortly. Drop once again going down in the main base. We do also see that +3 attack upgrade here in the Spire. Very, very interesting one. Before we actually see any kind of greater Spire play, we do see that +3 attack upgrade here first and foremost. Drop not done just yet, but the Marines are gonna say goodbye to their lives. They're gonna say goodbye to their lives very shortly here, because the mutas have arrived. At the same time though, creep once again cleared up here. The Terran army was moving through the northern side of the map, but it looks like Terran is a little bit worried right now for its positioning, just because that 5th base is looking a little bit vulnerable. Zerglings trying to make their way towards that 5th base, not aware that it's up just yet, but knowing that there's a big chance that it indeed is going to be the case. Marines are, however, going to greet it almost immediately. And these Zerglings are going to be forced to go back home once again. Couple of Marines here trying to do whatever damage they can. Oh, no. Oh. Well, we didn't even get to see them get blown up. Zerglings desperately trying to run through the middle side of the map. Marines being stemmed forward as well. And they're going to be able to push those back for the time being. A lot of mutas are right now in the main base as well. But nice splitting up once again by Ryung here. Rallying towards the main base. Making sure that there's a couple of random Widow Mines burrowed there as well. Making it a minefield. A very tricky position for the Zerg to engage into. At the same time, Ultralisks are on the production tab right now. They are being made, but 4 Liberators at a time are going to be able to deal with that army just fine. And at this point, we sort of have an interesting split map positioning from both players. We've got 5 bases for both players, and we are transitioning towards late game. Now, late game is one of those positions in StarCraft 2 where control becomes extremely important. The player with better control will almost always win the game, no matter what race they are playing, when they've got similar economies. I mean, we only see 57 Harvesters right now for the Terran player, just because he's obviously got mules to back this up with as well. But, you know, Scarlett at this point in the game has got a bank with 3.6k gas as well as 2,000 minerals. That's extremely good as well. Army supplies slightly bigger for Ryung, but you gotta keep in mind he's got planetary fortresses. These planetary fortresses are extremely good at dealing with all of these units, just because the Zerg will have a hard time engaging into it. Now, looks like the Liberators were trying to get a couple of the mutas. Looks like none of them really ended up falling there though, but at the same time, more and more static defense going down here for Scarlett. Looks like she's gonna be transitioning towards a much less mobile army, an army that won't be able to, you know, pick up these dropships nearly as easily, because we do also see that Greater Spire being morphed in right now, and the Greater Spire obviously very well known to be that one unit or that one building that gives you some of the most powerful units in the game, but also some of the absolute slowest. More and more spores going down right now at every single location. Look at that, that's beautiful. Really gonna allow these drops to be shut down with ease, but it looks like the Terran is starting to move across the map. A lot of liberation zones going down right here, and I'm gonna be zooming out just a little bit more because there's a ton of pressure about to happen here in the middle part of the map. This is what this game has been leading up to for a very long amount of time. Zerglings going for the run by right now, probably headed towards either the central part of this map or towards the main and natural. Mutas desperately trying to harass. Obviously they've got +3 attack, but oh, a lot of them do indeed end up falling here. Planetary Fortress doing a lot of damage as well. It's gonna be able to deal with these Zerglings just fine, and it looks like the Terran player is not quite done with his aggression just yet. More and more Corruptors on the production tab, as well as more and more Ultralisks. Greater Spire just about to finish up, so we could potentially see a switch into Brute Lords here very, very shortly. Now, the Terran is slowly but surely pushing onwards. Nice little fungal growth there. Does manage to lock down a couple of the Marines here to prevent them from doing a whole lot of damage. Ghosts have joined in this army as well, so they're going to be able to snipe these Ultras if they are, you know, not paying attention to their positioning. And it looks like, slowly but surely, the Terran player is closing in on this central base on the map. it's going to be very difficult for the Zerg to really be able to deal with that. But the Brute Lords have arrived. Will she engage right now? Will she decide to push onwards? And it looks like that is indeed going to be the case. Huge push forward here. Nice control on both ends. Liberator immediately getting out of there, trying to do whatever damage he can to just keep those units alive, because they're going to be extremely powerful the longer this game goes on. But it looks like that fight was way in favor of the Zerg. Funny thing is, though, that at this point in the game, there's really only 4 bases right here, with really only 1 mining for Scarlett. Scarlett's got to be very careful here about her positioning, because it's not all that beautiful anymore. May very well need to start taking another base, and indeed the drones are gonna try and move up here. There's a lot of creep spread up here in the north, so this base may very well be taken here very, very shortly as well. Now, at the same time, Ryung is looking extremely healthy. He's got a lot of extra command centers. Command centers are going to be able to deal with, you know, as much of this army as possible. He can even start sacrificing these SCVs very shortly, just to get a little bit more army supply. Look at that production tab, though. Right now, it is kind of scary. There's more and more Infestors going down, and while Scarlett is maxed out, there's a ton of production here for the Terran. Once again, we see that little bit of drop harass, probably just gonna try and clear up as much of the creep here as possible. Once again, though, more and more pressure here from Ryung. Both players will need to start taking new bases very shortly. I mean, mules do mine out these bases extremely quickly as well, but look at the amount of ghosts. Now, I would love to see a nuke. Obviously, it's not gonna happen. I highly doubt it will happen, but I would love to see it nonetheless. A lot of Infestors are actually out on the map right now already, with 3 more just about to join in. Actually, 10 Infestors. Let's have a quick look at, you know, these armies in general. So we got Infestor, Corruptors, Zergling, Baneling, Ultralisks, as well as a couple of Brute Lords, as well as a lot of Zerglings trying to go for run-bys. Actually, I think I named Brute Lords like 3 times. We're naming after that army composition. But at the same time, the Terran player has got Medivacs, Marines, Marauders, a lot of Liberators, as well as a lot of Ghosts, and a couple of Vikings sprinkled in there. He's probably still got a few Widow Mines as well. Although, yeah, there's actually 9 out on the map right now. They're actually in the production right now as well. But it looks like we now know what Scarlett is planning on. She's just simply gonna sit back, try and get another base out. And I think that's the correct call. Engaging into a planetary, extremely scary. But it looks like Ryung will not allow this to go down without a fight. But look at that. The surround is being set up. The Brute Lords are coming in from the watchtower. They're going to be able to zone very, very easily. And here we go. The massive sandwich here. A lot of infested Terrans going down as well. They're going to be able to deal with all of these Liberators with relative ease. And an absolutely beautiful engagement here by the Zerg will allow that entire army of the Terran to be cleaned up. And while there is still quite a lot of production here from both players, it looks like Scarlett eventually overrunning Ryung here, just simply with the proper positioning there and the full surround at that base. Now you gotta keep in mind, there's still planetary fortresses everywhere, so it's difficult to engage in here. It's very easy to overextend, but the Brute Lords do not have any of those issues. They're just simply gonna try and outrange that planetary fortress here to the best of its abilities. And then we also do see that corrosive, or no, actually, what was it called? I don't know what it's called. It doesn't matter though. We see these Corruptors pissing away, because really that's what it looks like on that middle planetary fortress. And so far, it is extremely well played right here by Scarlett. That engagement right here was absolutely beautiful. I'm starting to think that this base wasn't even meant for mining, but just mostly for that engagement in particular. And while we don't see the Terran player, you know, out of this game just yet, the middle base has ended up falling. A new base has been acquired for the Zerg, and the 5th and final base here for Terran, in particular with those mules, will be running dry very, very shortly. Now, the only thing Scarlett really needs to do is sit back. All she really needs to do is just simply sit on these bases and wait for the inevitable Terran push to come. And I wonder what Ryung wants to do here. He definitely has some of the best control when it comes to Terran players in the world. Maybe not quite at Beyond's level, but definitely, I would probably consider it top 5 or so in the world right now. Extremely good. It's just so very difficult to push up here into this maxed out Zerg force, or at the very least close to maxed out Zerg force, when it has Ultras, Brute Lords, Infestors, Zerglings, like all these units. They're extremely difficult to break. And still, 24 minutes into this game, that queen is still going to town, still placing down creep tumors. That is the sign of a great player. That is honestly the sign of what good players are going to be doing. Here we once again see the caustic spray. Is that what it's called? I think that may very well be what it's called, but oh man, so much damage coming out of it. Planetary ends up falling here as well. It looks like Scarlett has enough of this game. She's gonna try and move forward here, try and use as many of her units to clean up the Terran forces. Fungal growth going down. Ultras are gonna be able to close the distance here, and while Ryung went for relentless dropping throughout the entirety of this game, it looks like in the end, with that beautiful engagement, the Zerg forces are just looking a little bit too powerful. And indeed, GG is called, with Scarlett picking up the victory. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you subscribe, as well as follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Links are in the description. Other than that, I want to thank you very much so for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one.